Thank you, Per. Thank you. As an archivist, it's always a pity to stop people telling stories from the past, because it's my main interest, of course. But due to time reasons, we have to move on a little bit further. So I'm talking now about the archive at ZKM, the Harald Bode archive. We are here today for a particular reason, and that is because of Harald Bode, this pioneer and inventor of electronic music, and his archive, which is housed at ZKM since 2018 or 19. But before I will get more into detail about his life and his work and how that is represented and encapsulated in his archive, I want to address the question, why is the archive actually at ZKM? We already gave some answers, but I give some more. For sure, one reason is the friendship between Peter Weibel and Per Bode. Both media artists, video artists, they share a common background and connection, and through this connection they got in conversation about a possible donation to ZKM. But why does that archive, the archive of not of an artist per se, but at least not in the first place, but an archive of an engineer, inventor and trained physicist, should fit to ZKM as a center of art and media? Obviously, electronic music of the 20th century is one of the main interest points of ZKM, not only through its former Institute of Music and Acoustics, which is now Herzlab, but is constantly reflecting in exhibitions and publications over the last couple of decades. However, I see a reason for housing the archive somewhere else. The condition of the possibility of arts has always been just as much a topic as the art themselves. The facilitation and provision of technology, and even more so the fraternalization of technology in art, and this especially in terms of personnel, is recurring and permanent focus of art historical research at ZKM. This is not only to understand why art exists and how art comes into existence, but also to understand why artists use technology and how artists use technology. It is ZKM's agenda to give credit to the tools and tool makers. Per and I yesterday talked about that, not only to the artists. Peter Weibel and Siegfried Zielinski realized this claim in their exhibition 100 Masterpieces, Art in Motion 100 Masterpieces. One of these masterpieces, and we talked about that already, is actually not an artwork but an apparatus, the Bode Malochord from 1947. I quote from the exhibition, "Media art is an apparative art and therefore cannot be separated from apparatuses and machines." It was this exhibition and the conversation prior to it which led to the transfer of the archive to ZKM. I'm very happy that the catalog will soon arrive after all these years now about this exhibition. It's in print at the moment. In many cases, and many cases are represented in the archives of ZKM, scientists and engineers became artists and worked artistically with technology. We see, for example, quite represented that in computer art archives at ZKM, but also in other archives like the Experiments in Art and Technology archive, which is by the group founded by Robert Rauschenberg and Billy Klüver, the Bell Labs engineer. So the artist and Bell Lab engineer working together on art. It's another example of this synergy. This companionship is perfectly embodied by Harald Bode, and with Harald Bode, also with his archive. Art and technology, electronic music, and its instruments are interwoven to a close mesh fabric. So what is it? The archive of Harald Bode is quite extensive, and it is in some way even quite complete, if you can ever say that about an archive at all. In numbers, it expands about 11 meters of archival shelf, which means around 70 boxes, filled about 750 folders and thousands of documents. Most of these folders are in their original status, as they were housed at Harald Bode's place and later at Per Bode. The structure is organized after different projects and different time periods. In addition, collections of correspondence and collections of documents not directly related to topics not directly related to projects were built. There are only some photos between hundreds and thousands of paper documents, showing mostly instruments and devices in different stages of the project or simply the finished project itself. to use it for advertisements and product sheets. Everything or most of it was organized to serve as an archive of inventions and ideas for Bode himself. He was using this cosmos of concepts from the past to build future devices. It served as a pool of ideas to Bode himself. Sometimes concept draft and documents were brought together with contemporary projects. Other parts of the archive contain Bode's own history and the history of his family, which leads back, and we heard it already, to Hamburg and to Germany. The centerpiece of this archive is the collection of his notebooks, starting in 1930 and being continued until close to his death in 1987. More than 750 notebooks were written by Bode. They function as brainstorming tools, to-do lists, technical and conceptual blueprints, and dialogue between Bode and himself. Their main theme were his work and his world as an engineer, entrepreneur, and artist. Here's an example. Exact as a physicist and in mathematical precision, he checked lists, what has to be done, what was done, played through possible solutions, thought out impossible solutions, and that over his whole life, for over 50 years. Driven by this firm conviction that he was born to do outstanding and important things, desperate in the face of an economical challenge of running his own small business and providing a living for the entire family, Bode reveals his deep character traits and all his life situations. If you turn the notebooks on 180 degrees, the text loses his technical aspects completely and becomes narrative, diary-like. Here Bode focuses even more on himself and his inner self. His fears and wishes, his anger and his joy are written down. He is discovering his subconsciousness through the practice of a kind of stream of consciousness. He tries to improve his body and mind constantly to fulfill his own expectations. It provides a deep insight in the head of Harald Bode, sometimes even giving the impression these books were already written with an audience in mind. The constant feeling that this archive is meant to the public also comes with the technical documents and drawings. Many of them were signed and carefully dated. This archive is up to be discovered in more detail, and Bode was aware of that. In my own research, I have often the impression to scratch only on the surface and missing too much of this interconnected reality and interwoven possibilities. So who is that? Who is Harald Bode? Harald Bode's contribution to music technology are widely recognized. Over the course of a century, he invented more than 13 instruments and sound devices. His inventions profoundly impacted the field of electronic music and sound modulation, leading to the development of the modern synthesizer as well. His understanding of himself was that of an inventor, but not only of that. He saw himself as a painter, a philosopher, a composer, and poet. This useful overconfidence, and as it is stated in this notebook from 1947, this overconfidence does not disappear with age. Bode is driven by the idea to be meant to create important things. Constantly, he is searching for success financially, but especially regarding historical significance. So, reader, for those not German-speaking persons, I translate the last sentence. I don't want to compare myself with an historical personality, but here a life wants to be lived that has yet to be seen. Harald Bode was born in Hamburg 1909. He pursued his studies at Hamburg University, where he majored in mathematics, physics, and natural philosophy. In 1935, he initiated his professional journey by working on electronic music instruments. In his beginnings, in his late 20s, he was one of a handful of people worldwide who dedicated themselves to the idea of new sound through electronic instruments, an idea that had to occur long before inventors created the tool to make this idea alive. They were informed of the work of each other mainly through publications and sometimes correspondence. The initial instrument utilized by the composer was the Barberpole format organ, a collaborative effort undertaken with Christian Warnke in 1937. Bode subsequently relocated to Berlin, where he pursued postgraduate studies at the renowned Heinrich Hertz Institute. During this period, Bode, in collaboration with Oskar Vierling and Fecko von Omteta, undertook the development of his own instruments, the Melodium. This instrument, a monophonic melody instrument, was designed with a touch-sensitive keyboard and a multi-timbre capability. In the concept of the emerging war, Harald engaged in submarine sound and wireless communication projects under the direction of the Nazi regime, a strategy maneuver that enabled him to circumvent the mandatory military service, as he self-claimed in his notebooks. Bode, as his father and his family, was a strict anti-militarist. Disgusted by war and militarism, he nevertheless has joined NSDAP in 1933, out of opportunism, not conviction. Bode was completely fixated on his own career and his high aims he had set himself, which had to be achieved with all his might. Everything distracting of that task or hindering him to fulfill his calling has to be pushed aside. He later tried to get out of the party by not paying fees, but that did not help at all. During this period, he relocated to a Bavarian village, Neubeuern, where he stays also after World War II. In 1947, he constructed his own renowned mellochord in that Zauberhaus in Neubeuern, making the event of the first European post-war electronic music instrument. The instrument has been utilized in a variety of settings, including the renowned Studio of Electronic Music in Cologne. I already mentioned that instrument featured in the 100 Masterpiece exhibition at ZKM. The instrument was stunning in its sound quality and welcome news to war-weary country, where it made major news and was promoted in press and radio. The mellochord was a two-tone melody keyboard instrument with foot controls and a variety of performance features, including a format clavier, white noise tone generator with various attack decay and percussion's envelope capabilities, formant filters with continuous variables, and the ring modulators for harmonics. Just a sound file. In the subsequent years, Harald undertook the development of a series of electronic keyboard instruments. The design of these instruments exhibited a fluctuation between emulating existing instruments and facilitating the emergence of novel and sound possibilities. For instance, the polychord, the Boden organ, the tutti vox, and the claviolin. Looking more into detail into this development history between 1945 and 1955 would be important. Most of the research on Harald Bode is focused on the inventions and developments after 1960 at the moment. So with our publication, the symposium itself. So I encourage everyone to deal with this time period as well. Sorry. Harald's migration to the United States occurred in 1954, accompanied by his spouse Irmgard, his son Ralph, and his son Per. The family settled in Brattleboro, Vermont. He was recruited by the Etsy Organ Corporation to serve as the Director of Research and Development. Later, he assumed the role of a co-president with the objective of developing cost-effective, mass-produced electronic organs for the American market until 1960. In October 1961, Bode presented the modular synthesizer and sound processor at the Audio Engineer Society convention as a new tool for the exploration of unknown electronic music instrument performances. Bode served as the Audio Engineer Society convention chairman on music and electronics for the fall convention in 1962 and 1964. This instrument would later become recognized under the designation audio system synthesizer. The system incorporated a conventional tape deck, a tape loop, reverberation, and plug-in modules.
Audition tape number 1 for the audio system synthesizer. The sound of bongo drums through variable filters and a ring modulator with variable carrier frequency.
Harald's invention was the development of the first patchable modular system with control voltage capability. The young Bob Moog adopted Harald's concept and designed his famous Moog synthesizers in some part on that basis. Over the upcoming years, Moog and Bode cultivated a robust collaborative relationship and friendship, with the anticipation of further inventions. The audio system synthesizer marked the beginning of a new era in music instruments, one no longer confined to keyboard inputs, but capable to processing any sound source. The audio system synthesizer was succeeded by the development of the Klangumwandler, or later frequency shifter, starting in 1961. The Bode ring modulator, also in 1961, which was sold under the Moog license. In 1962, Harald Bode began a fruitful collaboration with composer Vladimir Ussachevsky. Per already talked about that, a partnership that played a key role in the development of inventions, but also commissioned further advancements, supporting their evolution. The Klangumwandler, also known as a frequency shifter, alters a sound over tones, effectively transforming its tonal character. The Bode Klangumwandler stood out for this broader shifting range and notable rich sonic texture. Meanwhile, the ring modulator, although has seen it worked by combining two input voltages into a new signal with unique tonal properties. Bode first experimented with ring modulators in 1953, following a commission of Meyer Epler for the Cologne Melochord, and later integrated it into the audio system synthesizer. In 1966, he partnered with Bob Moog to manufacture the Bode ring modulators and frequency shifters. The establishment of the Bode Sound Company occurred in 1972. In the same year, Harald Bode experienced the loss of his wife Irmgard. A few months later, he retired from Bell Aerospace, where he had spent the last 10 years developing microcircuits. Consequently, this enabled Bode to allocate a greater portion of his attention to his inventions. In 1977, Bode's most famous instrument was invented, the Bode vocoder. The vocoder achieved particular success due to its distinctive auditory characteristics. This phenomenon can be observed in the hits records of Lip Inks and their Funky Town record and other songs of the area, as well as the artworks from the video artists Gary Hill and Vasulkas and Susan Ciani.
This is the voice of the Bode vocoder. This is the voice of the Bode vocoder.
In 1981, the inventor introduced what should become his final instrument, the Barberpole Phaser, at the Audio Engineer Society convention. The story of the Barberpole Phaser and its reconstruction, of course, plays a crucial role at this conference and the whole event. I will spare the details for now. So I skipped that. Since the beginning of his career as an inventor and creator of electronic music instruments were Bode never reached a status where he was completely satisfied with the result. With every instrument, there was something which could be adjusted, could be fixed and changed, could be simplified to achieve a closer step to the aimed perfection and ideal creation. He constant struggle as a businessman and entrepreneur to make his products affordable and sellable can be experienced through his notes as well. It was this delicate balance between business and ideal which what impacted his entire career. Asked by his son Ralph about his studio and his inventions there, the question from Ralph was, "Papi, how do you relate to all that stuff? How do you relate to all this equipment?" And Bode replied, "I have to say I relate very much to that equipment. I relate very much to that music or the sound that it makes. And it's a constant evolutionary thing, not making look more sophisticated, but for the sake of having new and more means of limitless expression." Bode invented more than 13 instruments and sound devices and holds about 50 patents. He passes away then in January 15, 1987 in New York City. So what can we do with this archive? My last question after talking about why the archive is located at ZKM, what it contains, and who the creator of the archive was, will be what can one do with this archive? And of course, you would not be here if not for the result of the first project with and on the archive, the Reconstructing Harald Bode project with SYNTH-Werk Munich, with HfM, University of Music, Karlsruhe, and ZKM initiated in 2022. The beauty of this project is the connection of music historical research and re-engineering and co-creating instruments through and with the help of the archive. Not a scientific text, but an actual instrument which can be explored and used is the result of this research project. This is quite unique. My dear colleague and collaborative partner, Christoph Seibert, will talk in more detail about the project, so I will skip further information about that. Instead, I will focus on an additional project of the Harald Bode archive that planned publication on the work and life of Harald Bode. Here should actually be my colleague Ulrike Havemann, who is doing the publication with us at ZKM, but she's on holiday at the moment. So, greetings to her. Bode himself, running his business, created different forms of publication and published documents. One starting point to get closer to Harald Bode and his work and creations aesthetically were the numerous product information sheets. All these documents have in common the same typography. Bode used in the 70s and 80s. 1961, IBM developed the Selectric typewriter. Its new technology was a golf ball-like typing device. And Adrian Frutinger had to adapt his universe to this new technology. The advertisement claims that mechanical precision is now mixed with human expression, and is only too familiar if we think of Bode and his work. So we thought it would be a perfect fit. So we orientated on this fit. The text will, similar to the today presented lectures with authors of Senta Hirschreiter, for example, Rebecca Pavlov, Luis Antunes Pena, Juan Parra Cancino, Florence Wissler, but in addition, texts from Seth Kluert, head of Computer Music Center in Columbia University. Tom Ray also will give us some text, and Harald Bode himself will also be present as an author in the publication. By flipping the footnotes to the side gave us a sound wave-like impression, which we particularly liked. It's not clear if we can keep that aesthetically driven choice. We have to switch back to a more common form, but at the moment we are thinking to keep that. The publication will be finished and printed end of summer 2025, hopefully in August 2025. And the title will be Reconstructing Harald Bode, a Visionary of Electronic Sound. Our publishing house is Verlag für der Buchhandlung Walter König, and Matter Off from Stuttgart will do the design for the book. They created also these first impressions of the planned publication, and I have to thank them for providing them with me. So with that, I come to an end. And if there are any questions, we We will do that similar with all the other lectures, and after every lecture there will be 5 minutes of possible questions from the audience if needed. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question, give a comment? If not, we're gonna continue with Rebecca's performance. Okay.